I saw that some of you folks were like, not these guys again. Yeah, sorry about that. I was like, oh, what else have I not shown? Oh, this is interesting. I don't think any mammals will get killed in this. Um, Anyways, I'm Skip Elsheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime streaming show where we watch old 16mm films and we think about them and talk about them and comment on them, etc. Let's go ahead and get things started with a film about Buddhism. Enjoy.
Were thousands of years old when Columbus discovered America, whose people enjoyed a high civilization when Europe was shrouded in the Dark Ages. The ancient Orient consisted mainly of India, China, and Japan. Today, the cultures that were developed in these and neighboring lands differ from those of Western nations. Still, they are an important part of the world in which we live. Among the many contributions of the Far East is the religious philosophy of Buddhism. The founder of this religion, Buddha, preached his gentle sermons 600 years brought Christianity to the world. The word of Buddha spread throughout the countries of the Far East, and in modern times continues to be a powerful influence upon the peoples of the Orient. Perhaps the greatest influence which has come to us from the ancient Orient is a unique concept of the world and the universe. In this concept, man is insignificant. Man could live and work better and lead a fuller, happier life by studying and understanding the laws of nature. What was the background of this concept of living? The histories of India and China date far back, about 3000 BC, while the history of Japan began about 100 AD. Both the civilizations of China and India were fluvial cultures, cultures that developed near rivers. China and India are each dominated by two rivers, the Huanghe and Yangtze in China, and the Indus and the Ganges rivers in India. Let's look at the beginnings of civilization in the Indus River Valley in India. This is the Indus River, one of the many rivers which were the birthplaces of civilizations and cultures. The Indus River provided water for everyday needs. Early settlers found rich soil. Food was plentiful. This left time for developing a valley culture. This culture of the Indus Valley began about 5,000 years ago. These are the remains of Mohenjo-Daro, a city of the Indus Valley where people lived when the pharaohs were ruling in Egypt. Houses and public buildings were built of brick. We have learned how the people of this ancient community lived by studying their household goods and their many beautiful art objects. This civilization, the most advanced of its time, came to an end about 2750 BC. Around 2500 BC, a people called Aryans moved through the Khyber Pass into the Indus Valley. These nomadic and invaders were important in the history of the Orient because they developed the basis for the Hindu religion. Religion were the priests called Vedas, meaning wisdom in verses. The book was written in Sanskrit. The philosophy of the Vedas was a strong influence on Hindu life and religion. The Brahmin priests formed a caste, a group of men set apart from other men. The most important Brahmin teachings were collected and named the Upanishads. The word Upanishads means sitting at the feet of the teacher. The Upanishads told of a world soul, which was represented by three gods: Brahma, the creator; Vishnu, the preserver; and Siva, the destroyer and reproducer. The Upanishads also taught the concept of reincarnation. The soul of every man has lived since the beginning of time in many bodies, animal or human. This idea of reincarnation shows us the close association in the Hindu belief between human and other forms of life on Earth. In addition to religious philosophy, the early culture of India contributed such things as the foundations of modern mathematics. There were artistic contributions too. Among them were graceful dance dramas that interpreted the vast epic poems and legends of early India. Most important, Hindu culture produced ideas about human behavior that became part of Oriental philosophy. The religious teachings of Gautama Buddha brought a new philosophy to the Orient. Buddha preached the doctrine of nirvana, or eternal peace. Nirvana, he said, could be achieved only by meditation to bring the soul into union with the divine, and by moral actions done in a completely unselfish manner. The places in India where Buddha preached his sermons about 600 BC are marked by sacred memorials. Such memorial buildings are called stupas. Buddha's teachings had lasting effects. 200 years after Buddha's death, an Indian king named Asoka sent Buddhist missionaries to other lands of the ancient Orient to teach the doctrines of Buddha. In China, the Buddhist missionaries found a highly developed culture. Like the early Indian civilization, that of China began in a fertile river valley. The place was the Huanghe. The time was about 3000 BC. This is the Huanghe, one of the great rivers of China. Little is known about the people of early China, except that they were an agricultural people. By the 12th century BC, Chinese farmers had invented simple machinery, similar to this, to irrigate their fields with water from the Huanghe. By the 12th century BC, the Chinese became more than farmers. Under the reign of powerful emperors, they also became an artistic people. Bronze casting became a highly developed art. Later, the Chinese worked in porcelain and clay. Such pieces were often made in the home by family groups. By the 12th century BC, Chinese home life and customs were established. The family lived together in one house. When male children married, they and their families lived in the home of their parents. There was deep respect for parents, which the Chinese brought to their religion. Ancestors were worshipped at shrines like this. The dead became the protectors of the living, and the living were required to remember their duties to their ancestors. The home was the center not only of religion, but of art as well. The Chinese wrote poems about the beauties of nature. Writing, or calligraphy, was developed to a fine art. With equal skill, the Chinese painted pictures of their beautiful countryside and wove richly designed silk cloth. Chinese craftsmen often worked in the home and produced valuable jade carvings. The arts were an important part of the home life of the ancient Orientals. So were study and philosophy. The Chinese produced many scholars. Most frequently read were the works of two philosophers. The first was Lao Tzu, who in Chinese legend wrote the Tao Te Ching, or the Book of the Way and Virtue, which he holds in his hand. In this work, he stated the belief that men should be allowed to make their own decisions without government interference. The second philosopher, Confucius, sharply disagreed with Lao Tzu. In his books, he wrote that man could achieve an ideal society only through the guidance of state and government. The philosophies of Lao Tzu and Confucius concerning man and his relation to government are an important part of Oriental philosophy. In ancient China, the family was the basic social unit, a stable influence while governments changed and dynasties rose and fell through wars and invasions. In times of peace and prosperity, however, there was an increase of trade between China and other Asian countries. Both trade items and ideas were exchanged. Buddhism, by way of India, was perhaps the most important idea. In China, this religion gained a firmer hold than in its country of origin, India. At the same time Buddhism was thriving in China, other missionaries were spreading this religious doctrine to other lands of Asia: Indochina, Sumatra, Korea, and Thailand. In Thailand, Buddhist missionaries built many temples, further establishing the religion that was to influence most of the people of Asia. Last of the Asian countries to be visited by Buddhist missionaries and to receive and accept Buddhism was the island nation of Japan. Buddhist missionaries found Japan to be a country of mountains and rice paddies, surrounded by the sea. Japanese culture was far simpler than that of China. Ancient Japanese architecture, such as this, was gradually influenced by the cultures of other Asian lands. Japanese architecture imitated that of China and Korea. The artists of Japan followed the Chinese in their expression of nature, as did Japanese writers. The Japanese also eagerly adopted the Buddhist religion, which had originated in India. This country, and those of China and Japan, were important in the growth of Oriental culture. Here, the basic patterns of life and philosophy of the ancient Orient were established and kept alive. Patterns that today still influence the peoples of the East and the world in which we live.
All right, there you go. I think that was called Ancient Orient, or Ancient Orient Religions. The title was clipped, obviously, and then the front part of the film was beat to hell. Somebody, I think Kevin, made a Wu-Tang reference, and then somebody else, Taryn, said, "I never thought I'd hear a Wu-Tang reference here." Well, here's your Wu-Tang reference. I did a grand opening show at the Alamo in Los Angeles, where I will be returning in 2 weeks. And someone stepped up to me and was like, "Oh, there's this," I was showing films in one of the theaters, old school films. And this guy stepped up to me and said, "Oh, this is kind of like this this lunchbox of DVDs that I got back in the day." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I put out that lunchbox." And he's like, "Really?" I said, "Hey," I shook his hand. Very nice black guy. And I said, and who are you? And he said, he kind of leaned in, he said, "The RZA." And I was like, "Oh, I know who you are." And he's like, "Yeah, I used to sample a bunch from your DVDs for some of my music, my solo stuff." And I was like, "That's awesome." I got so excited. It's rare that I get to drop names regarding what I do, but that was one magical night. He was a very nice guy. All right. So, excuse me. Speaking of music, and today's would love for you to vote on the toe tapping tournament, the right bracket, if you haven't done so so far. I'm gonna play a quick little mix of stuff. Then we'll watch a film from the scanner. So here is kind of a quick view of everything with an explanation on how to vote, because your vote's important. Enjoy. So we're going to start off with, and again, so there's 8 competitors and there's 4 competitions. So the first one is Keep the Promise versus Barbara Murray from Jackson Junior High. So we'll start off with that, and then I'll just play all the songs all the way through. Okay, and then what you'll do is you will email me at skip@avgeeks.com. Wait, hold on. Yeah, at skip@avgeeks.com. What you like, and you'll have a week to do this. All right, let's talk more rock. Here we go. Here's Keep the Promise from the fine folks at Pillsbury.
Build, grow, moving ahead, working to spread the promise. New day, the feeling runs deep, working to keep the promise. Roll, let it roll. Keep those big wheels headed toward the goal. Roll, roll, let it roll. Bring it on in so we can take control. Let it roll. Keeping the promise. Keeping that great old recipe. Keeping the promise. Setting our sights on quality. Keeping the promise. Feeling it way down deep inside. Keeping the Pillsbury promise. Our pride. Some people just don't drink, because that's how they think. But that's okay. L'chaim, but Hebrews like their wine, and the Italians too. The Germans drink their beer, like the Africans do. In China and Japan, rice wine was always grand. Russians have been drinking vodkas ever since they were tiny tot, 'cause Scotch can drink their Scotch. The English drink their gin. You'd be drinking ale if you were a Dane or Finn. It all depends on from where you came, the type of drink you drink. But alcohol can be enjoyed by all, depending on how you think.
I'm gonna give a gift. You never guess what it is. Oh, what a gift I'll give. There's no way you'll ever guess. It's big. It's big. It's big. It's big. It's big. It's big. What is it? Won't say. What is it? No way. Is it bigger than a bubble? You bet. Is it bigger than a barbershop quartet? Is it bigger than a cube of Jell-O? Is it bigger than an armadillo? It's big. It's big. It's big. It's big. It's big. It's big. What is it? Won't say. What is it? No way. Jennifer. You make me very angry. You're playing very mean. I want to throw the ball with you. It makes me want to scream. I feel like pushing and hurting the people that I see. I wish I knew how to make them as angry as they make me.
What do you do with anger you can't hide? What do you do on the outside? What do you do with anger you can't hide? What do you do on the outside?
can't send the students and teachers back to school hungry, so we're feeding them all breakfast.
Each heart out, you can do it. You can do it. Each heart out, you can do it. You can do it. Each heart out, you can do it. You can do it. Each heart out, you can do it. You can do it.
Good things happen when you start snacking on a lip smacker candy bar. It's so much fun when your tummy goes yum with a lip smacker candy bar. Let your lips smack. Let your lips smack. Yes, good things happen when you start snacking on a lip smacker candy bar.
There are many different kinds of boys in the world. There are many different kinds of girls in the world. There are many different kinds of birds in the world. There are crows. There are robins. There are many different kinds of trees in the world. Many different ways of saying please in the world. Just as there are different shapes of clouds up above, there are many different kinds of love, kinds of love, kinds of love.
Run for your life. You can't cheat the devil today. Run for your life. Such an easy price to pay. You got a future. No more pain and tears. You can live your life much looser when you run away you feel. Oh, now, if you just run for your life.
Yeah, so Keep the Promise versus Barbara Murray. All right. Here's me saying, live. So these, vote, if you haven't done so far. I know that some of you do not like this, but this is important. This is so important. If we are to beat and maintain our current position as top found media moguls, we are competing actively with the Found Footage Festival, and we have won. And this is because you guys have voted for us and have come up with those. Your brains have picked those great songs. So try to do that before tomorrow's show, and we will announce the winner, and then we will announce the next bracket, and you guys can vote on those. All right, so thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, William, for donating. That's one way you can support us at AV Geeks, is you can hit the super thanks button in the YouTube chat, or you can go to ko-fi.com/avgeeks and buy us delicious coffee, which we will drink. Or you can go to patreon.com/avgeeks, and we will spend that on coffee, or we will spend it on things like, I don't know, what do I got? These annoying dongles that Apple has us buy to because they're constantly changing the ports on their computers. So going from Thunderbolt to another version of Thunderbolt, an earlier version of Thunderbolt, just so we can support hard drives and we can support different digitizing equipment that we use. All right, speaking of digitizing equipment, behind me we have film scanner. I have a film set up that I just got yesterday. I was going to show you another Unicorn Tales, but I might give it a break and do it later this week. But this film was one of 6 boxes that were huge, 60-pound boxes each. That's the problem with film collecting, is the boxes are huge. And this came from Chicago. Julian Antos, thank you so much. And this one could explain, this could be a proto-Uncanny Valley. I kind of thought about it. I was like, maybe this is where it kind of started. All right, so here is Hollwood, USA. Enjoy.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. MacDonald Carey.
Hollywood is not a place, it's a state of mind. All over the world, the word Hollywood denotes the American movie industry. It's a magic word that carries with it visions of glamour, excitement, and a fabulous way of life. Hollywood's famous symbols have become legendary. Her studios have grown from cracker boxes to sprawling giants. Techniques have changed. Progress has been made. But from the days of the silence to sound to cinemascope, the commodity has remained constant. Hollywood has always been in the business of selling entertainment. With all due respect to producers, directors, writers, and that vast army of skilled technicians, Movieland's best salesmen have been the stars. Fans always have and will continue to insist on glamorous personalities to identify with and to idolize. In the 65 years since Thomas Edison gave us moving pictures, the stars have been most responsible for transforming his invention into an art and an industry. They have long deserved a Hall of Fame. Now at last, they have one. Just a few high-speed miles out of Hollywood is a new building, and there's nothing like it on the face of the earth. Our destination is only a few minutes from Disneyland, and it's so close to Knott's Berry Farm, Buster Keaton could hit it with a cream pie. Movieland Wax Museum, a shrine to the great stars of the motion picture industry, past and present. It's a tribute to the world-famous performers who have made people everywhere laugh and cry and wonder at the magic of the film capital of the world, Hollywood. The dedication plaque says, dedicated May 4th, 1962, to the artists of the entertainment industry who, through their talents and efforts, have contributed so much to the enjoyment and understanding of the people of the world. It's signed Mary Pickford. The entrance to Movieland Museum can be compared to a time machine. Any person crossing the threshold can experience the highlights and thrills of visiting half a century of movie sound stages on their busiest days. Inside are living likenesses in wax of the greatest entertainers of our time, the immortals of the silver screen, captured forever in the exact wardrobe and authentic movie sets of their most outstanding roles. David Wark Griffith changed the Nickelodeon flickers into pictures of significance and influence. He produced and directed such early masterpieces as Birth of a Nation and Intolerance. He and his cameraman, Billy Bitzer, were the first to use the device of the close-up and the fade-out. The fabulous Marx Brothers, Groucho, Chico, and Harpo. This is a scene from their 1930 hit, Animal Crackers. These wonderful figures were created by the talented hands of master craftsmen from the four corners of the earth: Hong Kong, Hollywood, Spain, Mexico, and France. The scene in the bombed-out church is one of the most dramatic moments in the picture Two Women, starring Sophia Loren and Eleanor Brown. This dress was donated personally by Miss Loren to Movieland, It's the actual dress she wore in the picture. Her sensitive performance won her the Academy Award for the Best Actress of 1961 in this Vittorio De Sica production. While Sophia Loren was here for the Academy Awards, she came to Movieland Wax Museum and unveiled her set in person. In 1934, Myrna Loy and William Powell made the original Thin Man, a grand mixture of sophistication, mirth, and murder. The picture was a hit, so they made a whole series of Thin Man movies. Any of their fans could tell you even today their little dog's name was Asta. On a recent visit to Movieland Wax Museum, Miss Loy was emotionally moved on seeing her beloved canine co-worker. Something in the air of the early 30s made audiences eager to accept and believe occult and supernatural horrors. Bela Lugosi became a star in Dracula, and the success of this 1931 chiller sent all the studios on a wild search through Edgar Allan Poe, Robert Louis Stevenson, and other classic horror tales. The victim here is Helen Chandler, the first of many young lovelies to fall prey to fiendish monsters in the rash of horror films that were to follow. In 1932, MGM assembled 3 Barrymores, Lionel, Ethel, and John, for Rasputin and the Empress. It was lavish, exciting, and reasonably factual in the account of Rasputin's assassination and the downfall of the Russian imperial family. Even though the events depicted were true, the widow of one of Rasputin's assassins won a lawsuit in British courts. She received an immense settlement, and the film was withdrawn from circulation. One of the most sultry sirens of the 30s was the one and only Jean Harlow. This is a scene from the motion picture version of the Broadway success, Dinner at 8. Years of research and more than $1.5 million were spent on the figures, sets, wardrobe, and accessories to make this museum possible. No detail was too trivial. Even this Liberty magazine and the Literary Digest magazine are the correct issue. Nothing has been overlooked to bring your memories to life. Here are 2 famous movie stars who both started on the Broadway stage. Their outstanding performances in pictures earned an Academy Award for each of them. Katharine Hepburn received hers in 1932 for Morning Glory, and Humphrey Bogart won his Oscar in 1951 for his fine performance in this picture, The African Queen. Movieland Wax Museum has nearly 100 of the screen's greatest stars in their most unforgettable roles, and more are being added all the time. Of all the Western stars who ever galloped across the screen, William S. Hart is probably the most important. He brought a realism and rugged poetry to the horse opera, which by the time he arrived on the scene was dying in its own cliches. His Westerns had a documentary-like flavor unequaled even today. When Bill Hart rode out, Tom Mix came galloping on the scene with energy, escapism, and most of all, showmanship. He had a popularity and box office value equaled by no other star. During the 20s, his pictures literally made Fox Studios. Roy Rogers is the current king of the cowboys. He's carrying on in the tradition of Ken Maynard, Buck Jones, Gene Autry, Hoot Gibson, and all the other knights of the saddle who've ridden on the scene and off again. The transition from Western heroes to the bedchambers of King Henry VIII can be accomplished by a turn of the head in this wonderful shrine to the stars. The lavish wardrobe worn by this figure of Charles Lawton cost $2,500 and is an exact duplicate of the costuming worn in the film. We still have dozens of great stars to see, but before we continue, let's go behind the scenes and meet the founder of this unique monument to Movieland. Alan Parkinson made his fortune, then retired from business. He doesn't consider Movieland Wax Museum a business at all. With him, it's a labor of love. When he was just a boy, sitting in the balcony of his neighborhood theater, he was an avid movie fan, and he still is today. He's immensely proud of his dream come true. But to Alan Parkinson, his museum will never be finished. He keeps adding new stars because, as he puts it, they deserve the lasting tribute. The most talented art directors in Hollywood design the sets here at Movieland. They're working on such future projects as Ben-Hur, Spartacus, Fugitive from a Chain Gang, The Alamo, and many others. Here is the setting for Natalie Wood in a scene from her starring role in West Side Story. While the props are being gathered, the wardrobe being made, and the set being built here at the museum, on the other side of the world in Valencia, Spain, the gifted hands of sculptor Jorge Ballester are turning a lump of clay into the beginning of a living likeness of Natalie Wood. When the clay bust is completed, a plaster mold will be made from it, and from the mold, the head will be cast into wax. Each hair will be put in one at a time, and the wax likeness will be painted to match the exact complexion coloring. After many weeks, the finished wax figure of Natalie Wood will make the trip from Spain to Buena Park, California, and the Movieland Wax Museum. Occupying a place of prestige here at Movieland are the faces and figures of the funniest comedy team of all time. Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy were big box office and silent films. Later, they were even more popular in talkies. And today, they are followed by a new generation of fans as youngsters discover them on television. This is an accurate reproduction of the Bijou Theater set, complete with a real 1924 Model T. One of their ardent fans donated this actual 1929 license plate to help make the scene more authentic. Laurel and Hardy were box office smashers in more ways than one in this scene from their 1929 hit, The Perfect Day. They made so many two-reel comedies and features that for years they were more or less taken for granted. Everyone loved their films, but very few regarded Laurel and Hardy as true comedy greats. Only in recent years have they been acknowledged as the creative artists they really were. The pity is that much of their real recognition has come after Oliver Hardy's untimely passing. East is east and west is west, but here at Movieland, the twain shall meet. Here's Nancy Kwan in a scene from the world of Susie Wong, arriving by rickshaw at the door of the cabaret. Everything in this set was imported from Hong Kong. One of the most unique comedy drama teams of early talkies were Marie Dressler and Wallace Beery. They are pictured here in their 1930 hit, Min and Bill. Wally Beery could do comedy or drama with equal ease. Marie Dressler will always be Tugboat Annie to many of her fans. Talkies came in with a song in 1927, and just 4 years later, in 1931, the first Hollywood movie ever filmed entirely on location out of this country was made in the wilds of Africa. The star was Harry Carey, and the picture was Trader Horn. A man with a unique distinction is Anthony Caprio. He spends his time coiffuring some of the most famous, most beautiful women the world has ever known. A case in point is Gina Lollobrigida, pictured here relaxing in her dressing room while making Flesh in the Woman. Shirley Temple as she appeared in the movie Bright Eyes, doing her hit number on the good ship Lollipop. When the Depression hit Hollywood, gangster and topical films were the thing. But later, musicals and family films took over. Shirley Temple came along at just the right time and became one of the biggest child stars of the new swing to happier movies. The Frankenstein Monster. The success of Dracula in 1931 led to the filming of Mary Shelley's classic horror story later the same year. It was handled with great skill and taste by James Whale and created an even greater sensation than its vampire predecessor. Boris Karloff became a star as the monster. Ironically, very few of his newfound fans had any idea what he looked like without that masterfully grotesque makeup. In this scene, Baron Frankenstein's sadistic assistant torments the monster with fire, the only thing he fears. The R-Gang comedy kids. Their antics will live forever in the hearts of that generation who followed their adventures every Saturday matinee. The career of James Dean was meteoric. This moody, intense, 24-year-old Indiana farm boy only spent 1 year in Hollywood, and yet he starred in 3 films: East of Eden, Rebel Without a Cause, and Giant. 1 week after the completion of Giant, he was killed in an auto accident. James Dean became the idol of his generation. He's a legend to his fans, just as this man was 30 years before. Rudolph Valentino had an Italian father, a French mother, and 7 names most people couldn't pronounce. He crashed the movies as a dancer and an extra and became the great lover of the silent screen. Men copied him, and women adored him. This is how he looked in Son of the Sheik, his best and his last picture. Rudy died right after he finished it. He was only 31 years old. More than 1 million of his fans blocked the streets of New York to attend his funeral.
Vincent Price, the master of the macabre, as he appeared in the 3D horror thriller Hollwood.
So the computer crashed. That was annoying. Give me a second. Yeah, sure enough, I step out to get some water, and the computer just crashed. Oh, because there's no room left on the drive. Yeah, that happens. All right, let's see if we can get back. All right, 1 second. Alright, let's try it again.
In this scene, Phyllis Kirk is about to be dipped in boiling wax by the madman, played by Vincent Price. The scene is made even more terrifying by the breathing of the helpless victim. There's always something new being added here at Movieland. This large tank will be used to dramatize a scene from the movie PT 109. A scale model segment of a PT boat was built and transported to Buena Park. PT 109, as you know, is the true story of the World War II adventures of John F. Kennedy as a naval officer and PT boat commander in the Pacific. The figures which will be seen in the display are being fitted out with authentic wardrobe and last-minute finishing touches. The figure of actor Cliff Robertson, who portrays the role of Lieutenant Kennedy, was sculptured in Spain, and the uniform, which was actually worn in the film, was donated by Jack L. Warner of Warner Brothers Studio. To give the sinking PT boat realism, special effects man Wally Wilger creates a little magic with live steam. 50 caliber machine guns are mounted, and the tank is nearly ready to be filled with 24 tons of water. A few hours later, the lights are given a last-minute adjustment, and the set is ready for the dedication and unveiling ceremonies. The guest of honor is the star of the picture, Cliff Robertson, arriving in real style in the chauffeur-driven Rolls-Royce, which is reserved expressly for the purpose of bringing visiting stars to Movieland Wax Museum. Alan Parkinson is on hand to extend official greetings. Handsome John Gilbert and mysterious Greta Garbo, the most sensational love team of their time. This is a scene from their only talking picture together, Queen Christina, made in 1933. They made 3 films together. The public knew that Gilbert was wooing Garbo in real life. Seeing one of their torrid love scenes was a little like eavesdropping. Greta Garbo was a living legend, a celluloid goddess. Her legion of fanatical adorers were called Garbomaniacs. She was to her fans what a star should be. There are only a handful of truly immortal stars. This man is certainly one of them. Charlie Chaplin is regarded by many as the screen's most creative and greatest actor. There is little doubt that he contributed monumentally to the global supremacy of early American films. Recently, Charlie Chaplin Jr. brought his 3-year-old daughter here for a visit. When she saw this set, she cried out, "Daddy, there's Grandfather." As the 30s drew to a close, business at the box office was faltering for most producers. But late in December 1939, all box office problems were literally gone with the wind for producer David O. Selznick. It had taken 3 years, 13 writers, and 3 directors to translate the more than 1,000 pages of the novel into a picture. Fans of the book clamored for Clark Gable to play Rhett Butler. To cast Scarlett O'Hara, a worldwide search was conducted. It culminated in England with the selection of Vivien Leigh, an unknown British film actress. It has been said of Harold Lloyd that he had a warm-hearted understanding of the secret ambitions of ordinary people. His trademark was the young hero who always ended up scampering over tall buildings. Harold Lloyd personally selected this scene from Mad Wednesday for his place in the museum. When Western movies got to be half a century old, they grew up quite suddenly. Westerns became as popular in first-run theaters as they had always been everywhere else. In 1952, Gary Cooper made High Noon, one of the best pictures of his magnificent career. To theater-goers all over the world, his face was the symbol of honesty. His rugged features always reflected the physical life of his native Montana, even after 30 years in films. Not long ago, an elderly lady came to see this scene. She was scarcely noticed by the other visitors. After a long, quiet visit, Gary Cooper's mother left saying, "I want to come back and see him again." America's sweetheart, Mary Pickford, and the undisputed king of his time, Douglas Fairbanks. Each was a symbol to their fans, and their fans were practically everybody. Mary Pickford is probably the best loved of all movie stars from any era. Most people today remember Doug Fairbanks as a swashbuckling cavalier hero, but he became a star in what were essentially comedies. Speaking of comedies, here's an artist who made them by the dozens. If any one Buster Keaton picture can really be called the best, then Sherlock Jr. is probably that one. Buster worked out his own gags, and thanks to a long career in vaudeville, his timing was flawless. Buster Keaton never made a bad comedy, and he was one of the most inventive funny men ever to step in front of a camera. In a characteristic pose from the popular television series Wagon Train, we find Ward Bond, known to his millions of fans as Major Adams, the wagon boss. This set is one of the most popular with visitors to Movieland Wax Museum. The wardrobe was donated to the museum by Mrs. Ward Bond. "1927 was the year the talkies were born. It was also a banner year for some of the greatest silent pictures ever made. What Price Glory, Wings, Beau Geste, Ben-Hur. It was also the year of the first Academy Award, and it was won by this famous love story, Seventh Heaven. The stars were Janet Gaynor and Charles Farrell. The director was Frank Borzage, a craftsman without peer in handling love stories. The plot is simple. Boy meets girl and helps her out of trouble. They fall in love, war is declared, and he's rushed to the front. News comes that he's been killed in action, but she won't believe it. And in the end, her faith is justified when he returns to her. By that time, there wasn't a dry eye in the theater. Everything a Hollywood preview has to offer: lights, cameras, and stars. This scene from Sunset Boulevard belongs here at Movieland most of all. The picture was an absorbing study of the old and the new Hollywood, as is the Movieland Museum. Sunset Boulevard brought back one of the first ladies of the screen after many years of absence. Gloria Swanson is the epitome of a movie queen. She'll never stop being a star. In the film, she played Norma Desmond, a forgotten star who has lost her fame and, brooding over it, is slipping toward madness. Co-starred with her were William Holden, who portrayed Joe Gillis, the young writer, and the great star's faithful chauffeur was played by Erich von Stroheim. This magnificent Rolls-Royce is just another example that time, trouble, and expense are no object here at Movieland. Only 5 of these cars were ever built. This one was located, purchased from royalty, imported from England, and especially decorated inside with leopard fur. Gloria Swanson donated this real Russian chinchilla cape for this scene. The fur is valued at $10,000. Throughout her career, Miss Swanson carried a red carnation for good luck. One of the daily rituals is to place a fresh flower in the star's hand. This tradition has become so well known that visiting fans clamor for the day-old flower as a memento of their visit here. A cherished souvenir and a happy fan. We can all feel fortunate that years ago a boy on a balcony lost his heart to Laurel and Hardy and all the other great stars. People come here to Southern California from all over the world, even the stars themselves, to see this unique shrine and take a loving look back through 1,000 yesterdays at the greatest performers of the screen. Movieland Museum is a majestic tribute to the stars. And to the people who come here, it's an unforgettable experience. There's nothing like it on the face of the earth.
Pointed it out on the comments that yes, this was a early infomercial. Definitely an ad for this wax museum that was probably distributed to TV stations, and also you could probably rent this and show it to your civic group, ladies group, men's group, etc. It's fascinating. And I remember going to a really crappy Hollywood wax museum in Orlando, Florida, not too far from SeaWorld. And I remember that they had these kind of light sensor things that if you broke the light, it would go meh, to keep people from going and posing with the wax figures going up in the stage. Because I guess they didn't have enough security guards or docents or whatever. And so it was, one, the wax museums, the wax figures were really kind of crappy. And two, that meh sound was going off constantly because people were constantly getting their photos or going up and touching or doing whatever it is they weren't supposed to do. And so it was absurd. And so I've gone to other wax museums too, but that one is, that sticks in my head is kind of typical. There's one that's an African-American wax museum that's in Baltimore. It's affectionately nicknamed Blacks and Wax, and that's a pretty good one as well. I very much enjoy it. It is, I don't know, it's very earnest, and there's a lot of great information in there. Some of the wax figures, not so great, but that's kind of comes with the territory, I guess. Anyways, thank you, Kevin. Thank you, everyone else that donated. William, Jeremy, and thanks, folks, for voting. Again, we have until the show tomorrow to vote on the right bracket of the toe tapping tournament, and it's interesting. There's some back and forth with some of them. And there's definitely ones people like and ones that people hate, and a couple where people are like, I'm ambivalent. I don't really care because I don't like either of them. So thanks again for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow, Wednesday. In the meantime, let's see what's happening. I have too many windows open because of stuff. Anyways, thanks for tuning in, and there it is. We'll see you soon.